Transitioning from 1P Vendor Central to 3P Seller Central on Amazon Marketplace. If you're contemplating that, or you have to do that, then in this video, I'm going to talk through what does that look like and what you should do next. My name is Irina Balyurko. I help brands navigate Amazon Marketplace. So this week, today is September 12th, a lot of US and EU vendors received termination notification from Amazon, termination of their vendor relationship, effective November 9th, 2024. So the timing of this, the verbiage, and the irrevocable nature of this decision leaves no illusions of relationship equity of one side of this Amazon vendor relationship. So all in all, the timing is terrible. However, setting that aside, if you are impacted by that, or again, if you're thinking of moving to 3P, Seller Central, so let's look at what you can do. First, let me kind of give a little bit more context to what's happening in this termination wave and why, because I think most brands, vendors were completely taken by surprise and of course, stressed by that, understandably. We are at the heels of the biggest peak sales, right? So this is really Amazon ongoing strategic realignment to lower their cost to serve, to improve operational efficiencies. In other words, they want to get out of the mass kind of a vendor relationship management and really focus completely on vendor side, Vendor Central, to be enterprise level, very large brands, right? So the fewer and bigger. In addition, Amazon wants to shift inventory holding risk from itself to seller. All of those vendor templated communications termination agreement pretty much said you can continue selling on Amazon on a Seller Central. And on the sell by pushing vendors to sell on seller side, Amazon shifts inventory holding risk from itself to Amazon. So that is really the underlying reasons. In other words, it's not you, it's me. So it's purely pragmatic, it's business decision driven. It's not empathetic, it's cold, it's terrible, but this is really the underlying reasons for that. So, and the reason I want to mention that, because I've seen out there some Amazon experts say, well, it was perhaps poor mismanagement. It was mismanagement of Amazon channel, lack of attention to, lack of sales by some vendors. That's why they got that communication. And I don't think that's correct on many levels. It's already stressful enough to get notification. And also there's no need to put blame on vendors other than becoming Nike overnight. There was not really a lot in vendors' control. So now that we've talked about that, let's look at what to do next. So the first of all is assessing the risk to your business, because you don't want to rush into decision. Perhaps you need to make strategic decision quickly, but you can't really, if you don't understand the impact, then it's hard to think rationally. So how dependent is the livelihood of your business on Amazon Q4 sales, Amazon vendor, and especially Q4 sales? So here, let me pose you two questions. On one side, we have, if we don't get Amazon vendor Q4 sales, we don't get POs through Amazon Q4, then our business is in a serious jeopardy. Then the other side is, okay, Amazon stopped issuing POs for us in November and then pretty much be done with the vendor sales. It's not great, but it's also not very impactful for our business. So we can hold on to make their direct decision. So of course, the closer you are to option 2, the more leverage you have in terms of time, right? So, but if you are closer to option 1, then you do need to make strategic decision quickly to plug the gap. Also in 2025, focus on diversifying away from Amazon as your longer term objective. But regardless of where you sit on the spectrum, there are really 2 options. Both of them involve Seller Central, 3P. So I will use 3P and Seller Central interchangeably here, just like 1P and Vendor Central. So it boils down to this. Option 1, you sell to a distributor that sells on Amazon Seller Central. So that's option one. The second option is you go direct on Seller Central. So let me talk to that quickly. The first option is there is a distributor brand and there is a distributor that is already selling on Seller Central. So they are a seller and perhaps they source, I'm sure, from many brands. One of them may be you. A lot of them issue POs. So your products will be sold on Amazon, but they will be sold by this XYZ distributor. So the option two, going direct on Seller Central, means that you, brand ABC, is a seller on Amazon. So you'll be setting retail price on that. So basically selling direct to consumer. You can still use Amazon fulfillment. You don't have to ship individual orders yourself. So you do have Amazon fulfillment options. In some ways, very similar. Well, actually, in a lot of ways, it's very similar to shipping, pallets or, to Amazon warehouse, as you already been doing. So if you are a distributor already, a lot of the vendors that were impacted in this termination wave are distributors. Option one, selling through another distributor, doesn't really make sense because adding another layer of with basically wholesale cost and logistics chain doesn't really make sense. If you are a brand owner, you should explore both. Now, and if you are in a position of being able to wait, it's not a live or die scenario. However, I have to say that if you growing an e-commerce presence, growing e-commerce channels is of key business interest for you, going direct, that is option two that I listed, is better for you long term because you get more access to data, you get analytics, and you also get kind of the brand equity that is direct, right, from you. So having all of that, and then also adding internal know-how to how to operate an e-commerce, right? So to your toolbox, which is key as well. So that is really would be, I think, more in your long-term interests. Now, if you're already selling 1P and 3P, if you're hybrid, which I have clients like that, we've helped manage that as well. So it is possible. And let's say if in that case you were told the vendor side has been terminated, then you also have a big leverage because you're already on Seller Central, even if in tiny capacity, you already are. So it's just a matter of leaning into that, and perhaps you even have enough time to capture Q4 sales. So those are two options. Now, what you should do next. So before November 9th, two things: lock in your brand equity. Just because your Amazon vendor sales will cease by end of the year, or they will stop voluntarily, right? If you voluntarily transition to 3P, does not mean that there isn't equity that you've earned and they cannot, can also serve you forward. And here by equity, I mean two things. First is your brand control. So make sure that your brand content for your products is locked in under you via brand registry. So brand registry is agnostic to vendor seller. So if your vendor account is literally closed, then you can't really access that to make changes to images, or if you have updates to packaging, or you can't really optimize your listing. So that's not great. So make sure it's locked into your brand registry, because how your brand looks on one of the most powerful e-commerce platforms in the world is your brand equity. That's your face to the world, face to the market. So that's one. Then the second lever, your second piece of equity is data. So before your vendor account is done, voluntarily or not, make sure you download all the data, sales data, advertising data, all of it. Because while historical performance doesn't necessarily mean you can replicate it in future, right? Data, we know, is key to make decisions, right? And you will need some of that in order to decide perhaps what SKUs to to put on Seller Central, you know, if you're doing a phased approach or part of your catalog. Advertising also, I have to mention that advertising, you have to start new advertising account on seller side, so you will not automatically kind of a transfer. So you want to make sure you have that for your reference and decision making. So locking your brand equity. So the second is beware the pitch. Because I'm obviously plugged in this Amazon kind of a supporting ecosystem, I'll tell you, there's a lot of hungry Amazon agencies that are jumping on the short-term opportunity. Lots of vendors are locked out of Amazon sales. So a lot of them will want you to do something quickly. So, and a lot of Amazon agency out there service their clients, their brands by running their accounts, running their brands on 3P Seller Central side. So you will be getting a lot of those pitches. It's not necessarily bad, right? It's a business short-term opportunity for them, but also it's a great short-term play. But many of them will approach you with good intention. A lot of them will have solid experience, and perhaps some of them will have really speedy execution, which is what you need if we're talking about Q4. But if Amazon vendor termination scenario is not live or die, then whatever those pitches you get in your inbox, it's in your inbox, you select all of them, move to other folder, and deal with that in Q1. Obviously, if it's not live or die, you have other channels to focus on in Q4 that will make your business money. So put it all aside. So don't be tempted. If this is a live or die scenario, then from experience being an operator on Amazon, I'll tell you to look at, of course, you want to look at their experience, and not only sellers, of course, they need to have experience of running as an operator, right? Managing Seller Central, but also as a vendor, because they need to understand the mindset you're coming from. Sometimes assumptions and questions not asked is what becomes a risk. So they need to understand where you're coming from, kind of anticipate that. So that's important. They also look at their team. And here, actually, the smaller, maybe the better, because you'll probably get more attention. The big team, lots of clients, you probably will not get fast execution. So perhaps smaller team, and also grill them on operational requirements. Seller Central is different. It's more hands-on platform. So you want to make sure, coming from the wholesale side, you understand what is it they will do, what is it that you need to deliver from operational, from branding assets, from any resource and support they will do for you, and what you need to deliver, not only to them, but also as part of ongoing relationships. So that is very key. So now, if you're still overwhelmed and you say, okay, so fine, I will download my data. I'll make sure that my brand content is, if you're a brand owner, under brand registry. And I understand I have two options, but how do I decide? And when should I decide? So, and this is where talking through, well, going on seller is going to have this, so this, so this is kind of a tactical template that may or may not work for you. So in the case of 1P to 3P transition, I do feasibility assessment. So it's an exercise that reviews your business, reviews your catalog, reviews your operational capabilities, reviews the importance of Amazon to your business, and then layer it with Amazon Seller Central P&L. What will P&L look like? What operational and resource and requirements? It is direct to consumer side. Inventory projections, marketing and advertising benchmarking guidelines, and also roadmap and a project plan for that transition. When you have that, when you're equipped with all of that, you can truly make educated and rational and the right decision, right, for your business, because you will know what to expect. So rushing, it's a worthwhile exercise. So I would be happy to do that for you. You can see the link on the bottom, but regardless, it's a worthwhile exercise that that you need to have done, because if you rush into the Seller Central setup and execution mode straight, you simply don't know what you will, what you don't know perhaps will become your operation, your business losses. In other words, you can quantify what you're losing, right? You quantify your Amazon vendor sales, where you may potentially be, well, you're losing, but you can't really quantify benefits and risks on a model that's completely new to you. So that's just straight up gambling. So I don't want you to be doing this gambling. So I would be happy to talk through the 1P to 3P vendor to seller feasibility assessment diagnostic that is specific for your brand. And after that, you can say, okay, we're good to move forward. What's the next step looks like? Then I'd be happy to help you. And if you say, you know what, thank you, this just solidifies the decision that we are not the Seller Central, it's just not the right model for you. And that will be a great value in itself. So link below, and we'll talk to you soon.